Okay, Q&A, yeah.
Okay, so I know we've talked about how the essence of tefillah, right, is that it's Tefilah, right, that's reflective on you, that you're going through this process, you gain certain insights on yourself and the way in which you're supposed to be aligning yourself with God's desires as well, right, and that through that, then you come out of the process changed, right, and that's really then merits you to have a different hashkafa or all these different things. So the question is, so within, right, the Amida, right, so you need to have kavanah on the first paragraph, right? And if you don't have kavanah on the first paragraph, then everything is supposedly worthless, right?
Right.
But if you get like a very impactful insight after having no kavanah in the first bracha, like, how should that be possible if you're saying that this thing is ma'akev? Right. And if you're saying that it's just about the insights, right, and that thing is ma'akev, then the insights don't have an effect on you.
Okay.
How does that relationship work?
Okay, so that's a good question. So I'm gonna actually I'm gonna sidestep the question to answer the question. Okay, which is to not answer about that particular thing, but to answer a bigger question, which will I think answer what you're really asking. Did you guys do the Reb Chaim? Okay, yeah. So that's the other thing. Also, I'm wary about. I know there's the way that Stam people learn the Reb Chaim. About like kavanah being ma'akev in the first bracha versus the requirement of kavanah in the entire Shemona Esrei. But since it's like freshly learned by you, freshly learned. Okay, yeah, no, but it's definitely more fresh than my learning of it.
And
yeah,
I don't know that really. Oh, it's the first requirement, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Rabbi Zimmer said multiple times during that Rechaim, before we even started.
Everyone thinks,
he's like, everybody thinks that they remember, and then they learn it again. They're like, what?
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that's another reason I don't want to answer that question. So the version, tell me if this is adequate for a stand-in for your question, is you did a Tefilah, and you had so much kavanah, and then you realized that, it was Rosh Chodesh, and I forgot to say Yalev Yavo, right? So is my whole Tefilah worthless, right? So is that...
Yeah, I would say that's
okay. Yeah. All right. I think the answer to that lies in the fact, and I don't know if this is 2 points or 1 point, but you have to remember what Tefilah de Oraisa is according to the Rambam, which we will review, not from Mikros Gedolos, from Sefer Ahava Hilchos Tefilah Birkas Kohanim. First halacha. So he will mitzvahs to say he's followed b'chol yom. To mitzvahs to say to self-reflect every day. Shneimar, as it says, you should serve Hashem your God. Mipiyushmul amru avoda zohi tefillah. From the Torah Peh, they said that this avoda is tefillah. Ne'amar ovdo b'chol levavchem. You should serve him with all your heart. Amru chachamim, the sages said. Ezohi avoda shebelev. What is avoda shebelev? Zo tefillah. That is tefillah. Ve'in minyan hatfilos min Torah. V'lo mishnah hatfilos min Torah. Ve'in l'tfilos man kavua min Torah. The number of tefillos per day is not from the Torah. The text, Mishnah here means text, literally teaching, or I think it means in the sense of teaching of tefillah is not from the Torah. Ve'in l'tfilos man kavua min Torah. And there's no set time for tefillah from the Torah. Lefikach nashim v'avanim chayavim b'tefillah. That's why women and servants are chayav in tefillah. Lefi shehi mitzvah to say shelo as man krama, because it's not a time-bound mitzvah. Ella chiyuv mitzvah kafu. Rather, the obligation of this mitzvah is such: shehe adam mispalal umischanim b'chol yom. That a person should self-reflect and supplicate every day, and recount the praises of God, and he should ask for the needs that he needs, with requesting and supplication. And then he should give praise and thanks to Hashem on the good that God bestowed to him, each one according to his capacity. Then the Rambam goes on and describes and talks about why they made an institution of tefillah of several times per day and the nusach and such because of the languages and everything. So this is my understanding, and I don't know. I'll give you two options here. I think when you daven a Shemona Esrei that has a halachic requirement, whether it's having kavanah of Perish Amilos in the first bracha, or whether it's saying Yalev Yavo or Mashi Faruch Meda Geshem or Hatal, like that whole thing, and it's ma'akev and you're not yotzei. I think it's reasonable to say on a deoraisa level you did do tefillah, okay, because that's what tefillah is, okay. However, midirabanan you're not yotzei. Okay, and the Rabbanan have the right to come up with specific forms of how you do the doraisa, and midrabanan you're obligated to do it again. Okay, I think it'd be a big stretch to say that you're not yotzei doraisa because you did shevach, bakasha, and hoda'a. All right, and all of the benefits of tefillah, that you were just talking about, like the self-reflection and stuff, is still coming. They're still coming about. Okay. And the other possibility is we know that there are certain areas where the Rabbanan give a form to the mitzvah d'oraisa, okay, like that there is a certain d'oraisa and then the Rabbanan limit it, and you're no longer free to fulfill the d'oraisa in those the forms that are outside of that. I don't know enough about that sugya to say, like, let's say like the classic example is like malach on kol hamoed. Like, and I don't even know if that's a good example of this, but like, that there's a shita that like whatever, the Rabbanan were given the total rights to like formulate that. This also gets into issues of what Torah shel peh is, and do the Rabbanan have the authority to like change the forms of the doraisa? I don't know what the whole thing is, but like, you could also say that that maybe you're not halachically yotzei, but it's a big stretch to say that you did not do an act of avoda shebalev. So whether you're like halachically yotzei the doraisa, or whether you're just like philosophically, like in terms of acts of perfection, I think you are. You did get that act of perfection, or maybe you're even yotzei the doraisa. Another angle, which is the similar answer, is on the one hand, this is. Tefilah is an act of an activity of perfection. On the other hand, it's avoda. And one of the things about avoda is avoda has to have specific forms. For example, when Nadav and Avihu brought the Eish Zara asher lo tiva osam, that God didn't command them, there's a machlokus about like, what their intent was or whatever. Some Mefarshim really hold that like the action, as an avoda, as like whatever perfection and reasons they had, it was valid, but since it wasn't sanctioned, the key element is lo tziva osam, and we don't have the right to engage in avoda without a matir, and the matir is the halachic system. So like you gained a lot of perfection from the thing, but if you don't, like, here's a good example. If I say a bracha levatala, right, and I have great kavanah, and I like it really like gives me like insight and stuff, I am being perfected by the act, but I didn't have a matir to engage in Shavach Hashem. And you need a matir to engage in Shavach Hashem because the act of Shavach is an act of blasphemy unless you have, all those ideas. So like, it doesn't have to be one or the other. And I think that's like, to me, that's the best way to view this. Is I had really good Tefilah in the sense that I got really key insights, but I didn't meet these halachic criteria. So I am not, at best, I am not fulfilling the Rabbanan. At worst, I'm like engaging in an unsanctioned act of Tefilah, and there's imperfections from engaging in unsanctioned Tefilah,
And that would be a problem.
Yeah.
To reflect on that.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But also, not all perfection comes from Tefilah either. I mean, you can consider have good ideas like at 3:00 in the afternoon if it's different, even if you're not doubting.
Right.
So just because you had a good idea in this improperly, this non-halachic Tefilah doesn't mean that it must have been a Tefilah. Yeah,
and I'll give you a riot to that also is in the Sefer HaMitzvos, when he goes into, I don't know, it bothers me why he doesn't bring this down in the Mishnah Torah explicitly. Is this my computer being slow? The internet being slow? It looks like the internet is a little slow. Well, I'll just say it. Which is he in Sefer Mitzvos, mitzvah number 5, when he goes into avodah shebalev, he says Ula'avdo zo Tefilah, the Amru Ula'avdo zo Talmud. So Talmud Torah is also avodah shebalev. Okay, which is interesting that if you if you engage in self-reflection, in a Torah framework, and it's not Tefilah, like it is a form of Talmud Torah also. Like you are engaging in a certain like pursuit of knowledge, of self-knowledge, so like you're also, so it is like a avodah shebalev through a different channel, Yeah. Okay, good question. Yeah, Isaac.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So I was listening to Ram Bakish.
Yeah. Yes.
So some Ram Bakish from last year.
Yeah.
And you're talking about getting the shel Torah.
Yeah. It's the best one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the things that the Ram talks about is talking about Tochal.
Yeah.
Which he said was, if necessary, you'd be, willing to eat just bread and salt, and the practice he describes, they're not just like, I don't know, maybe you could express this better than I am. But my question is, this seems like, like the type of thing that maybe only in this situation you could actually know if you have if you are on that level or not. So I was wondering if there's any way a person could, see if they're not on that level, like, without having to actually be destitute.
Mm-hmm.
And if they're not on a level to work on it.
Okay, so let me make sure I get your question. So you're saying that in the Rambam in Hilchos Talmud Torah, chapter 3, he talks about how to get the Keser Shel Torah, which is the highest level of Torah, the Torah achievement award. No, it's not an award. Otherwise, it's not Lishma. But he says that Rambam says, someone who takes it upon himself or sets his heart on to fulfilling this mitzvah properly, as is proper befitting for it, and he wants to be crowned with the crown of Torah. He shouldn't distract his mind with other things. He should not try set his goal to acquire Torah with wealth and kavod together. Darcho. Such is the way of Torah. Tochal. Bread with salt you shall eat. Unless you're on keto and eat bread with salt with wraps. Tishan, sleep on the floor. And live a life of suffering. And you should toil in Torah. The work is not upon you to complete, nor are you free to abstain. If you have accumulated Torah, you've accumulated reward, and the reward is in proportion to the suffering. So we learned it last year. It's not that you dafka have to sleep on the floor and eat bread with salt. It means that you must be willing to learn Torah even under such conditions. Like if a person says, "Oh, I can't learn today because I didn't get to eat what I wanted, or like I had a bad sleep or whatever, and therefore I'm not going to learn." He might fulfill the mitzvah, but he's not going to get the Keser Shel Torah. Like you have to be willing to do this. So your question is seemingly the person never knows how they're going to react in adverse circumstances until they're actually there, right? So is there a way that you can work on this thing with when you're not in those circumstances, like work on this avenue of getting the Keser Shel Torah? Yeah. So I would say that in the same way that you can definitely artificially put yourself in situations where you are experiencing obstacles to your Torah of this nature in order to gain self-knowledge and then be able to test yourself, in this manner. The only downside is it has that tinge of that since you're doing it voluntarily, it doesn't have the same crushing weight of like, I'm a victim and I'm forced to be in these circumstances, but like, let's like, as an example, like I associate this with the old YBT building, then the old YBT building, it was of blessed memory. It was not a nice place to live. It was a very, not a nice place to live, and like, I was raised in thinking that I needed to depend on a certain level of like physical comfort in order to, have Yishuv Das, and being thrust into that environment. And I knew that it was going to be like that. I didn't know experientially, but I knew intellectually, as Rabbi Fox said when I was considering going to YBT, it's not the Taj Mahal, that like I knew it was going to be a step down in that way. And I, so I put myself in that situation and then found out that like I didn't need that, So like you can simulate these things, but can you actually know? I don't think you can actually know unless you're in those situations, Yeah. So it's like an in-between answer. Like you can simulate it and gain self-knowledge and do experiments and all that other stuff. And you can also frame stuff as experiments, like like, let's say totally hypothetically, let's say you suffer from insomnia, and like, but what you do is you say, I'm not making excuses. I'm going to come and I'm going to teach every day, and I'm not going to interrupt my Talmud Torah schedule at all. I'm not going to make excuses. Then, like it puts you to the test and makes you see, like, can I do it? So like, that's not me putting myself in the situation. It is taking something that might not be framed in the framework of this halacha and then putting it in the framework of this halacha to realize that I'm cultivating my darcho shel Torah, my kesser shel Torah pursuit, Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I got.
Yeah. I want to toss another factor into the mix.
Sure.
What we've been saying in Ram Bakiyas about or
Mm-hmm.
and like having psychological needs.
Yeah.
Based on the standards that you're used to.
Yeah.
Like how does that, like, if a person develops psychological needs based on the standards that they're used to, should a person, that sounds like maybe that a person should get themselves used to. Yeah,
so that's the thing also, is like a common error among Talmidei Chachamim is okay, well, there's two common errors. One is giving into your psyche, the other is neglecting your psyche, like there are people who will try to wean themselves off of things that they actually psychologically do need. And then that will make them suffer in their learning, right? Like, I don't actually need, 6 or 7 hours of sleep. I can function on 5, and they convince themselves of that and then ends up harming their learning, or weaning themselves off of lo lishmas, right? Where like, you sense that you are like wanting to be like the top guy in shiur, and then you tell yourself, oh, that's an emotion. Like I shouldn't try to do that. And then you like don't participate in shiur, and then that ends up harming your learning, So there is or it's just a quantitative thing. Like you push yourself too far, like maybe you can give up on some of these comforts, but then you push yourself too far, and then that ends up harming you. So again, it's a balancing act. Also sometimes it's an imperfection masquerading as perfection. Like the Rambam says in Hilos Deos, chapter 3, when he says that, when he talks about like people who are ascetic, right? Shema yomer adam hoyel v'hatayva v'kavod v'kiyot b'hen derech ra v'mosin esanam min ha'olam evrach man biyoser v'esrachik l'tzad ha'achron. So I'm going to distance myself from all pleasures and kavod, and he tells himself, I'm doing this for the kesser shel Torah. I even heard of an extreme case. I saw this in the news a couple of years ago, that there was a kid in yeshiva who like was engaging in all these like ascetic practices, and he died of an eating disorder. Like it was really an eating disorder, like it was anorexia, masquerading as pas b'melech Tochal, and he was sleep depriving himself, and then he, it developed, that led to like depression, and then that led to a bunch of other stuff, and then he ended up dying, I don't know like under what particular circumstances, but so you got to be careful with these things also. Yeah, look, I think this is my advice is, very few people I have met in my life, in like yeshiva guys really are like, I know the Rambam says that the kesser shel Torah is like waiting for everyone, and anyone can get it. I think there are many people who would benefit from just trying to get Torah before you try the kesser shel Torah, like in my days, like I think of the people like the Yaakov Trachmans of the world, like that's a guy who can get the kesser shel Torah, like he just does not have the same psychological needs as other people do. He doesn't have the same, like, like for that person, like, okay, go for it, but for most of us, due to our upbringing, due to the galus, to whatever, just focus, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Just try to get Torah, okay? And if you get Torah, you're increasing the odds for getting the crown, okay? But like, don't worry about it. Not everyone can be king, yeah.
Also, getting Torah helps you along the path of like, like figuring out what the pitfalls would be if you try to.
Yes, that's also true, right? Yeah, makes you better at assessing the path of the kesser shel Torah. Yeah. Okay. Another question?
Oh, a bird hits the window.
yeah. I was thinking about that. Yeah. We'll put the question for posterity, right? Actually, this is actually an interesting thing. Okay, so do you mind if I say the case?
Sure.
Okay, so the case was a bird hit the window, okay, at 1:25 p.m. ish, maybe 120, right?
Yeah.
And I have a BQ mini shiur from 130 to 145, and Chaim starts his head in and says, "A bird hit the window," and I'm going to go 10 to it, so I might miss shiur, right? And so I said, okay, thanks for letting me know. But inside, I was wondering, like, do you skip shiur to attend to a bird that is injured? Okay, so I posed this question on one of the Facebook forums that I'm in, and it caused tremendous debate. And the way I framed the question was, I gave the case and I said, are there any halachic or non-halachic sources that would inform the decision about whether my student should have gone to this shiur and then attended to the animal, or gone to animal and then attended to the shiur? So it raised many questions of, when, there's principles of prioritizing mitzvahs in general, right? Of like, if it's a, whatever mitzvah comes into your hand, like that is the first thing that you should do. But then there's also Talmud Torah, Keneged Kulam, and like you don't interrupt Talmud Torah for this, and then Bittul Torah, and then is Tzar L'Balei Chaim even a mitzvah, or is it just a value? And then there are people who are like accusing me of like warping the whole halachic system by even asking if this should be a halachic question, And then I brought in the Avram ben Rambam paradigm of the derech ha'am and the derech ha'yachid. Derech ha'am being halacha and the derech ha'yachid being going beyond halacha to live in line with Torah values. And even if halacha doesn't demand something, then there are still ways to utilize Torah values to make these decisions, even if it's not within the purview of halacha. And then I had people accusing me of completely misunderstanding Avram ben Rambam and projecting my own ideas. It was a very, very lively debate. And then people quoting Chuvos of the Chashuki Chemed, who I'd never heard of before, who was asked about one of his Talmidim would, on his way to the Beis Midrash, would stop to feed the stray cats, and then like, was that right? And then I was thinking Ashrei and like, Rachmav al Kol Masav, and like Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi telling his wife to not sweep up the little weasels, right? All the best Agadas use weasels, yeah. And so like it was a very good question. But I think what I realized in the when I had people claiming this is why I'm not Orthodox, I was like, to even ask such a question of should you like leave a pained animal like in order to to learn Torah, like that's a cruel question, and this is what's wrong with all of Orthodoxy. It was a whole big hubbub, but that itself, like, that itself made me realize it was one of those like great moments in keeping Torah, that there is nothing that is not that Torah has nothing that the Torah is silent on. There's no case in life that the Torah is silent on, whether it's halacha or agada or a debate about halacha or agada. Like, it is everything draws in the entire system, to like say, what is the system going to say about this? So I thought it was a great, like, natural question that came up, yeah.
In my defense,
Yes.
I'm also working on specific midos right now too.
Yeah.
So like specifically the midah, I was talking about Zimmer about this Sunday night, specifically the midah of like being able to basically like Talmud Gadol
Talmud
Gadol should Talmud and maybe be myself.
Yeah, right.
I'm working on myself and like
right.
Chesed as well.
Yeah.
And like that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's good.
And like Rabbi Zimmer was saying that because like let's say for example like, my sister wants to go out for dinner or something like that, and I really don't want to go because I want to learn, or I want to shiur, right? Like Wednesday night, my sister wanted me to go. And I think it was last Wednesday.
Okay, I was just saying because you didn't miss anything this Wednesday.
I didn't miss anything last Wednesday either because I ended up not working out. Well, it was just wanted me to go.
No, I was saying because I didn't give that idea this year. Yeah.
And I was like, I really don't want to do this. But then I thought back to what I've been talking about with Rabbi Zimmer a couple of times, where he said the one thing he told me that was like really good advice at the end of the year last year was don't if you want to he said the worst thing you can do for the truth is be a jerk because of it. Mm-hmm. And so like if I just like say to myself and say to other people like I'd love to join you for dinner, but I want to learn, I want to learn more, and,
right.
And even if I try to like show them that I care, it ends up coming across as like I just don't care about them, which ends up basically distorting. It seems to distort. It distorts like my view of like the halachic system in a sense, but also distorts their view of like, me as a halachic person and the halachic system.
Yeah, that is the halachic kiddush Hashem, right? Is that even if you're doing things that are mutter, if it's going to cause people to grumble or have a bad impression of Torah, then Kiddush Hashem dictates that you take that into account, and that is all according to your esteem as a chacham in the eyes of whoever you're dealing with. So like that was part of my way, and also I was like, and in truth, we don't have an answer yet, but you'll tell me if you ask Rav Pesach. But so it's a good question though. Okay, stop for today. Yeah, thanks for coming. I was going to